Welcome, it's great that you're here. We're sure that you'll see merit in this. We call this a new approach to federation reforms, or for short, New Fed reforms. In this first proposal, we wish to show you a simple matter concerning electoral reform. This proposal concerns elections in Australia, federal, state and local. We've inherited from the colonial times of the 1800s the current system of uncoordinated, misaligned timing of elections. The proposal is that we adopt a new approach to federation and align the timing of our elections. The cost savings, both direct and indirect, would be billions of dollars. Did you know that in every 4 years there are either 16 or 17 different days of general elections across Australia? This is not including by-elections or referendums, or anything similar. There are either 16 or 17 different days in each 4-year cycle. Each state or territory has a different day for their local government elections. There are 6 states and 1 territory, the Northern Territory, summing 7 local government election days in every 4-year cycle. Note that the ACT does not have any local government. Also, each of the 6 states and 2 territories have their own day for their individual state or territory election. Did you know that all local governments have a fixed 4-year term and that all states and territories have a fixed 4-year term, except Tasmania's 4-year term is not fixed? Conversely, the federal parliament is on a variable 3-year term, which has averaged 2.5 years since the 1901 federation. In Australia, there are 592 local governments or councils. That is almost 600 local councils. This first proposal outlines how our governments can save considerable money on the alignment of the election process, coupled with diminishing federal and state duplication in managing the process. The cost saving for the Australian government would be well over $1 billion each decade in direct costs alone. Using very approximate numbers, in 2020, the cost of undertaking elections in Australia, summed over a 4-year period, is around $1 billion for the election and $2 billion to run the Electoral Commission's federal, state and territory. If there are 2 federal elections within those 4 years, it will be towards $1.5 billion in a 4-year period for the elections. In all, this sums between $3 and $3.5 billion every 4 years, very approximately. With this in mind, Part 1 of this proposal for the alignment of timing of elections is to align all the local government general election days to be on the one day in the 1 year every 4 years. We would have 1 day every 4 years that we would call a National Day of Local Government Elections. This would enable all Australians to be focused on that one task at the one same moment, for which media at the national, state or territory and local level would give focus. This would have the added benefit of raising public awareness of local government, council, shires and voter participation. This alignment would also save our governments over $1 billion each decade. Let us explain how. Things to note. Other than COVID causing one election to be delayed, the New South Wales local government election, there are 3 points here. 1. We know that currently for New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland, the fixed 4-year local government elections have been occurring in leap years. 2. We know that 5 of the 6 states have their local government elections in the months of September, October, November and predominantly late October, early November. These are New South Wales, Victoria, Western Australia, South Australia and Tasmania. 3. We also know that citizens prefer elections not to be held at certain times during the year, which include Christmas holidays, Easter holidays and the football finals, as well as not on the Saturday of long weekends. By recognising these points, we can identify 1 day in every leap year that would be ideal to have the 4-year fixed-term local government elections for all of Australia's local governments. In this proposal, this 1 day has been identified as the Saturday before the Melbourne Cup in a leap year. This is the Saturday on or before 4 November of a leap year. There are numerous reasons why we propose this day, which will be further explained later. Note the following table. In the left column, the 6 states and 2 territories are listed. Under the current election dates, note the leap year 2020 and note the predominance of the months of September, October, November. Note the proposed aligned election date, and under adjustment required to align, note the changes. All these are correct except for the COVID-induced delay to New South Wales. All local governments are a creation of their state or territory, so the state and territory governments set the term duration, 4 years fixed, and set the election dates, as well as have their own electoral commissions run the elections. For this alignment to be implemented, it would require the 6 states and the Northern Territory to make some adjustments. This can be simply achieved by the state or territory government and their parliament making a few non-controversial decisions. These adjustments are straightforward in all except one state. Queensland can achieve this, but with one additional hurdle. We know that the proposed late October, early November Australian nationwide local government election day will be 4 or 5 weeks after the end of the football grand finals, which will enable the election campaigns to commence after then and not cause any distraction of voters from the grand finals, which has been a problem in elections in the past. Consequently, governments now avoid it. We know that in a leap year, either the day after or the week after the Melbourne Cup, on Wednesday around lunchtime, the winner of the US presidential election becomes known. Our media never cease to give us regular updates. This will mean that the theme of election will be in our media and in the minds of many Australians. This arguably will generate interest and momentum for our own nationwide election. The theme of getting out and voting will be in the air. Having our election prior to the US election and not after it will mean that anticipation is more likely to facilitate our citizens' action towards voting in our local government elections. This is preferred because the post-election exhaustion that follows a US presidential election, which we Australians often feel, may work against Australians coming out to vote. The US presidential race goes for almost 20 months, and even most Americans are exhausted by the media coverage and advertising over those 20 months. Once Australians have done their civic duty by voting in their own nationwide local government election day, they can immediately turn their attention to the form guide and social momentum of the Melbourne Cup. And the day or week after the Cup, hear about who won the US presidential race. This timing will hopefully increase voter interest and participation in local government elections, something with which state governments have had only limited success. We wish to also draw your attention to further advantages of having one national day of local government elections in late October, early November of a leap year. This day will also be available for either a federal or state referendum if one needed to be held. The whole nation would be attending to their voting at polling booths being paid for by the state and territory electoral commissions in every corner of Australia, except the ACT, which does not have local government. So, if there were to be a federal referendum at the same time, the Federal Electoral Commission, the Australian Electoral Commission, the AEC, would share in some costs with the state and territories instead of having to stage a referendum separately. Federal referenda tend to occur every now and again. Last century they occurred an average of one every decade. There has not yet been one this century. Typically, if a Prime Minister attempts a referendum, he or she will only attempt it once in their lifetime as Prime Minister. A referendum is now specifically not held at the same time as a federal election to avoid failure. The last time a referendum question succeeded while being simultaneously held with a federal election was 1946. Consequently, federal referendum questions are held separately on their own day. The cost of having a referendum is about 3/4 the cost of a general election, around $1/3 billion. A referendum question approved by the nation voters is an infrequent occurrence, but they do succeed under certain circumstances. This is discussed in more detail later. This proposed National Day of Local Government Elections in late October, early November of a leap year could also be the day for any state referendum, again at no significant extra cost to governments. It is worth noting that the major political parties have little or no involvement with local government elections, except for the Brisbane City Council. So there would be almost no involvement of the major political parties on this day, the Saturday before Melbourne Cup in a leap year. This absence of nationwide major party involvement is further reason why it is such an appropriate day for a federal referendum. The first year in which this could be set up would be the leap year of 2024. This proposal has been put forward in the interests of saving our government's money to reduce the extreme COVID-induced government debt. We trust that you see value in this idea. We now invite you to answer one question indicating your view after this video. One last point. It concerns New Zealand. A brief word on our brothers and sisters across the Tasman Sea. Well, we call them that when the Wallabies do well against the All Blacks. But if not, then they're our cousins across the Tasman. Either way, we are all family. New Zealand. New Zealand has local government elections in October, currently on a 3-year fixed term, most recently in 2019. There is reportedly strong public view in New Zealand, 61% in a 2013 opinion poll, to increase from 3 years to 4 years their national parliament term. Both the then Prime Minister John Key and opposition leader David Shearer expressed support because governments need time to establish and then implement new policies. Given this strong public view, they may also seek to increase the same for their local governments to a 4-year fixed term. If they do so, their 2028 October nationwide council election date could be extended by 3 weeks to align with the proposed Australian National Day of Local Government election, Saturday before Melbourne Cup Day in a leap year. This would also ensure that their local government election day was adequately clear of the football final seasons, which currently it isn't. Food for thought. Now for that one short feedback question we ask you to answer. Question: do you agree with the proposal that the local government council elections for Australia's 6 states and the Northern Territory occur on the same day, on the Saturday before the Melbourne Cup in a leap year? Simply click on yes or no. Thank you for your interest and for your support. While you're here, there's another short video following that we invite you to watch. We expect that you will find it most worthwhile. It links in with this first video. We sincerely hope to see you there.